In 1999, 70 police officers were accused of police misconduct during the LAPD's infamous Rampart scandal, and the man behind it all was Rafael Perez. Rafael Perez had went from being a good cop dedicated to arresting criminals and violent gang members to becoming a criminal and a gangster himself. And when federal agents finally took Rafael Perez down, he exposed the biggest case of police corruption in California's history. Police corruption can be found in various parts of the world, including California. While it is important to emphasize that not all police officers are corrupt, instances of corruption have been documented in the state over the years. Police corruption can take many forms, including bribery, abuse of power, drug-related offenses, and more. In our case is about every form of corruption I listed above that turned our main protagonist into a gangster police officer. Rafael Antonio Perez was born in Humacao, Puerto Rico on August 22 in 1967. At a young age, more exactly at 5 years old, he moved to Brooklyn, New York with his mother. Some months later he moved to Paterson, New Jersey, and then he would eventually move to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1982, where he would spend most of his childhood years there. As a kid, Perez always wanted to be a police officer. He would watch cop shows about police officers in Los Angeles, California, and dreamed of one day working with the LAPD. Perez graduated from high school in 1985 and enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, where he was stationed in Maine and California. While in the Marines, Perez didn't have many friends, but those who knew him described him being a nice guy, considerate, and easy to talk to. In 1988, the military base Perez was stationed at closed down, so Perez relocated in California with his wife to start a new life. So in the same year Perez relocated in California, he took the LAPD entrance exam and passed. He joined the police academy, being one of the best. He was the squad leader of his class. In 1989, Perez graduated and becoming a Los Angeles police officer at 22 years old. After his rookie year, Rafael Perez began working undercover assignments on the narcotics team, and he was partnered up with David Mack, a cop from Compton who had joined LPD. The two were put on the buy and bust team, which meant they traveled throughout the city undercover buying drugs on the streets and making arrests. Perez quickly learned about the darker side of Los Angeles. He became an expert on how gangs and drugs moved through Southern California, and he saw firsthand how gangs and drugs destroyed the communities he patrolled, so he worked hard to arrest those who were involved in both. And for the first few years he was good at it. Perez's commanding officers recognized him as being an honest cop who made clean arrests and took hundreds of real criminals off the streets. No reports of any police misconduct involving Perez came until 1993, for years after he had joined the force. That incident involved a drug dealer who had been shot and killed by Perez's partner David Mack. According to both Perez and Mack, the dealer had put a gun out on Perez, threatening to shoot him, and Mack responded by shooting first, saving Perez's life. Witnesses, however, told a much different story. They claimed the dealer was unarmed and was shot once when he approached the police car. They say the dealer then tried to run and was shot again in the back, killing him, but both Perez and Mack denied the allegations, and both were found to be justified in their actions. David Mack even received an LAPD medal for heroism in saving Perez's life. 1995 came by, and after years of exceptional police work cleaning up the streets, Perez was assigned to an elite undercover narcotics unit, the Rampart Anti-Gang Unit Crash, which stood for a Community Resources Against Street Hoodlums. In this special unit was the police officer's job to track and monitor gang activities and gang membership. The officers patrolled Rampart, an area just west of downtown Los Angeles that's heavily populated and home to at least 30 different gangs. Because of the undercover nature of their jobs, the officers assigned to Rampart were allowed to wear plain clothes and not police uniforms. Perez, who was no longer partner with David Mack, was assigned a new Crash partner, and the two were let loose in the streets to confront and attempt to control Los Angeles gangs. It is said that this is when Perez started to look and act in a gang-like manner. Perez demanded respect from those who came in contact, and if they didn't give it to him, they paid the price. Perez's Puerto Rican background also gave him an advantage over the Spanish-speaking community he patrolled because most people assumed he was black, not knowing he actually spoke fluent Spanish. Within months of working with the crash unit, Perez was on his path to corruption. His first admitted offense came while making his first big drug bust. Perez and his partners had seized money from a drug dealer and then decided to keep some of the money for themselves, and from there his spiral downward was fast. Perez began stealing drugs and money from other dealers through illegal search and seizures and would beat up whoever tried to stop him. He started setting up gang members for crimes they didn't commit and would plant fake evidence on suspects to make arrests. 2 gang members Perez planted weapons unarrested and sent to jail for 1 and 3 years. With the money he made from his illegal activities, Perez was able to live an expensive lifestyle. He had remarried and was living in a beautiful Los Angeles home with his wife and daughter, enjoying life, buying new cars and home furnishings. Along with the wife and family, Perez also had several girlfriends in the Rampart area he patrolled that helped him deal his stolen narcotics. Perez would steal the drugs from dealers, then bring it to his girlfriends to sell the product on the streets. But after years of stealing from drug dealers, Perez wanted more, so he moved to stealing drug evidence from police lockers, replacing the stolen evidence with flour. In 1996, while Perez was building his criminal empire, he stayed in contact with his former partner David Mack, and the two remained friends. Mack introduced Perez to Suge Knight, the CEO of Death Row Records, who was at the time looking to hire off-duty police officers for extra security. Perez got the job, and on his days off from the police force he worked as a private security guard for Suge Knight in Death Row Records. On Suge's side, Perez's life got more lavish, and this is what caused his downfall. By the beginning of 1988, Perez had crossed all the way over. He would drink and throw wild parties with exotic dancers in hotel rooms while on duty. He'd shoot suspects without any cause, then wouldn't call medical attention after seriously wounding them, and one man he had shot paralyzed, then sent to prison for 23 years. Perez had gotten completely comfortable with breaking the law, which had made him careless, and that's what caused his downfall. On August 25, 1998, SWAT teams blocked off Perez's quiet suburban street and arrested him for stealing $1 million worth of cocaine from an LAPD evidence locker. Months later, arrested and facing 12 years in prison for stealing police evidence, Perez cut a deal with prosecutors in exchange for immunity. Perez agreed to give information regarding widespread police corruption within the LAPD's Rampart division. Soon after Perez's confession, the entire crash task force was dismantled, and all gang officers from then on were required to wear police uniforms. The US government also stepped in, meaning the Department of Justice would supervise and monitor all Los Angeles police activity for 5 years. At trial, prosecutors accused Perez of being associated with an LA Blood gang and said he had become a rogue cop who decided to take the law into his own hands. Perez admitted that he was a cop who had turned bad, but said that while he was committing the crimes, it hadn't occurred to him that he was destroying lives, and then he apologized. In 2001, at the age of 33, Perez was released from prison after serving 3 years of his 5-year sentence for stealing police evidence. That same year, Perez pleaded guilty to the shooting of Javier Alvondo and was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. After serving 2 years, he was released and put on parole. Because of his testimony exposing the corruption within the LAPD's Rampart division, Perez received full immunity for all the crimes he committed while being a police officer. After being released from prison, Rafael Perez chose to not speak publicly again and lived a quiet life away from the spotlight. So that was all about Rafael Perez, the gangster cop from Los Angeles. If you have any ideas of what should I make my next video about, just drop it in the comment section. See you in the next video.